Chinese jets lock Japanese radars. Now, what does this mean? This means that when you are facing adversary and their weapon system, if you are able to lock it in, it means they are in your firing range. And that's when things suddenly snowballed into something far serious than what that entire region has seen in over a decade. America backed Japan publicly. It is a treaty partner. It's an ally partner. It needs to back it. And they did so in so many words. But how did it get now even more intense? That's when the Russian bombers also came in. The Russia-China bombers, when they performed flybys, that is when it suddenly looked like the Russian-Chinese bonhomie that Western security analysts have been talking about for so long almost seems to come true in the Pacific. Japan, meanwhile, has fortified the Yonaguni line, which means that it is now escalating and it's actually upping the ante, even as Taiwan is tracking these PLA sorties. Now, where does Taiwan fit into this mix? We're going to tell you more on that, because Taiwan is actually just 100 kilometers away from Japanese territory. So when China says it wants to take over Taiwan, it has direct impact on Japan as well, even as carrier drills are intensifying. Now, you can see this is where all action is, and heat is actually intensifying in that region. Now, so you see clearly, as the Pacific heats up, the world's major powers are now moving pieces like it's actually a chess board built on fault lines. Meanwhile, take a look at this report that details how a Taiwan flashpoint could play out both on land, sea, and even in the air, ignite a conflict at an unprecedented scale that the world has been trying to avoid for long.
In the skies east of Okinawa, the diplomatic temperature has dropped. Japanese F-15 pilots claim that Chinese J-15s twice locked fire control radars on them. It's an act military officers call one button short of a missile. Tokyo calls it the most dangerous encounter in years. Beijing, on the other hand, insists Japan provoked it. But the radar flare-up lit something bigger. Across the Ryukyu chain, Japan is hardening its islands. It's rolling out long-range missiles, electronic warfare units, and radar grids from Kyushu to Yonaguni, just 110 kilometers off Taiwan. Japan is converting its postcard paradise into a frontline fortress. As for China, well, it's moving in formation. Carrier Liaoning launched roughly 100 jet sorties in a single day. Russia and Chinese nuclear-capable bombers soared past Japan in a coordinated show of force. At sea, new satellite imagery shows civilian roll-on roll-off ships, China's lesser-known shadow navy. It's practicing beach offloads of armored vehicles, the very same logistics needed for a Taiwan landing. Military planners say a Taiwan conflict might unfold in 3 violent beats: missile barrages, amphibious crossings, then a ground thrust for Taipei. US war games warn Beijing could try to seize ports quickly, because without ports, no invasion can survive. Taiwan, for its part, vows to sink ships before they reach shore. The Pacific has seen storms before, but these winds feel different. If a Taiwan crisis erupts, it could reshape this entire century. An NDTV World Report.
All right, let's get an important voice on Faultlines. Sana Hashmi is a fellow of Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation. She studied in Taiwan. She's joining us from there. She's tracked this space closely. Sana, how is it looking like right now? There's been a lot of flashpoints of late. Is it looking like it could escalate further?
Thank you, Gauri. It is one of the most contested issues, specifically since 2020, since the start of the pandemic, and when Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. But of course, now when Sanai Takachi is at the helm in Japan, it was very much expected that how China is going to perceive this change in leadership. She's considered to be the protege of Shinzo Abe, and we all know that how Shinzo Abe's approach towards Taiwan and towards the regional security was. And I think she is definitely carrying forward what was left behind by Shinzo Abe. So I think China already had this idea that this is not going to be an easy task to get Japan away from Taiwan. So it is definitely getting much more contested, much more polarized, and also China is not really leaving this particular incident behind, as in it was just a statement that she said it in diet. And I think this is something that we have been hearing for a very, very long time. Shinzo Abe said it, and the successive leaders have been saying it, that how a Taiwanese contingency could
Which
also be a
brings me to
Japanese.
ask you that, while there are deep military aspects to it, a lot of this conflict is actually political in nature. And now that there's been such a transition in terms of Japanese political view, Japanese political leadership, that do you think is central to how this is likely to play out going forward?
Absolutely. As in, of course, we have to keep in mind that Taiwan is at the core of this entire episode. China is just not taking it any further, that if you're talking about Taiwan, you just have to stop it there. As in, this has become such a huge, huge red line for China. So, of course, this has been a political issue. China and Japan have their own territorial disputes, and now with Taiwan. So, from Chinese perspective, the entire idea is that if China is going to invade Taiwan, Japan along with the US is going to be a part of that conflict. But I think what China is not really understanding, or maybe they understand it's just a part of the play, that this is also about Japanese security. I think for Japan, Taiwan is, of course, a primary security concern, because if something happens in Taiwan, near Taiwan, because of the close proximity, it is also going to be a security issue for Japan. And it's primarily because whatever missile, whatever attack China is going to go for Taiwan, it is also might just reach Japanese territory, which we have also seen during the Nancy Pelosi visit. And I think this was the start point where Japan also
That's when the
became
flashpoint really
more.
intensified, when Nancy Pelosi went there and she challenged the Chinese leadership, looked them in the eye. But since then, a lot has moved, both in terms of the US-China relationship and also China's position. But I want to understand, and this very quickly, walk us through how the Chinese view the present conflict. Are they willing to escalate this? Or do you think that this is just a flashpoint that is likely to subside over the course of the next couple of weeks?
It's very hard to say if there's going to be an escalation, or if this tension is going to be escalated into a full-fledged conflict. I don't really see a possibility of it. What China has been trying to do in the past few years with Japan, with Taiwan, is to change the status quo and also establishing new norm. And this militarization, these tensions, this war of word is something that is a part of this entire new norm process. So as of now, I don't really see that this is going to be turning into a conflict, but I think we have to just brace ourselves for a situation where there is intensified militarization and maybe a standoff. But I think South China Sea, East China Sea, this might spill over to other theaters as well. But I think Taiwan would be the primary theater of conflict, and it would definitely involve Japan. And I think this is one of the evidences that how Japan could be involved in a Taiwan contingency.
Very quickly, you are in Taipei. What's the mood like? The political leadership's view in Taiwan about these present flashpoints that are something that the world is witnessing and really tracking very closely.
I think the threat is taken much more seriously than ever before, and also because China is also ramping up their efforts and militarization and everything. So I think this is being deeply felt within the leadership. The defense expenditure, they're talking about increasing the defense expenditure as well. But they're very grateful for the Japanese support, and I feel that US, of course, is by it's a de facto security guarantor for Taiwan. But there is a sense of gratitude towards Japan as well. But there's much more focus on self-sufficiency for now in Taiwan.
All right, I'm going to leave it there. Sana Hashmi joining us from Taipei for that quick perspective on how things look like right now. Viewers, well, this is the Blinkers Off segment on the show. We tell you how this looks like right now. And there are 5 questions that still remain unanswered. First and foremost, question number 1. Can China afford to escalate this further at a time when Donald Trump is set to meet the Chinese leadership? He's looking to, in fact, visit China over the course of the next couple of months for trade talks. Can China actually afford to topple that apple cart, so to say, right now? Question number 2, how far is Donald Trump willing to go as far as protecting Japan is concerned? It's one thing to have a mutual defense treaty. It's quite another 70 years later to have a president who's unsure of it to actually back this to the hilt. He may, but there are questions that he may not. Third question, where and how long can Taiwan now be on the edge? It wants greater defense guarantees from the US as well. As things stand right now, that isn't the case because Donald Trump and his administration is fairly transactional in its approach. Question 4 that comes in terms of the Russia-China relationship. It's one thing to fly a couple of bombers along with China to send out a message to rattle the Japanese defense radars and send a message to Taiwan. It's quite another to back China in a larger conflict. Is Vladimir Putin willing to do that? And the last question that is most important right now is that can this escalate beyond just the Pacific? And if so, will this engulf the world in yet another conflict? And can it actually happen right now? Well, those are questions that we are going to wait for answers to.